February 1st, 2026, 1:47 in the morning. Tucson, Arizona. A masked, armed figure approaches a home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Within minutes, an elderly woman, Nancy Guthrie, is taken from her home in the middle of the night. No shots fired, no screaming neighbors, no immediate alarm. Just gone. Now, Nancy Guthrie isn't just any missing person. She is the mother of NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognizable faces in American morning television. And that connection turned this case into a national news story almost instantly. The FBI got involved, a $1 million family reward was announced, a $100,000 FBI reward followed. The story dominated headlines for days. But here's the thing, the more you look at the details of this case, the actual timeline, the evidence, the behavior of the suspect, the ransom notes, the more questions you start to have, questions that don't have clean answers. Because some of the details in this case don't add up. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here to name suspects. I'm here to lay out 5 specific things about this case that have been bothering investigators, true crime analysts, and ordinary people following this story online, and ask the question that no one seems to be asking out loud. What actually happened on the night of February 1st? This is Digital Detective. Stay alert, stay informed, let's get into it. Before we get into the 5 things that don't add up, let's establish who Nancy Guthrie is and why this case matters. Nancy Guthrie is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. Savannah has been a fixture on morning television for over a decade. She's covered presidential elections, major world events, and breaking news. She is one of the most trusted faces in American journalism. Nancy herself is an elderly woman living in Tucson, Arizona. She is reported to have a pacemaker, a medical device implanted in her chest that regulates her heartbeat. That detail is going to become very important in a moment. On the night of February 1st, 2026, at 1:47 in the morning, a masked and armed individual entered or approached her home. Nancy was taken. The family was notified. Law enforcement responded. And within a very short window, this case became national news, in part because of who Savannah Guthrie is, and in part because of the nature of the kidnapping itself. Savannah Guthrie appeared on NBC in the days following the abduction. She was clearly distressed. She pleaded for her mother's safe return. And she described the situation in a way that caught a lot of people's attention. The family announced a $1 million reward for information leading to Nancy's safe return. The FBI added $100,000 on top of that. The total reward reached $1.1 million. That is not a small number. That is the kind of reward you see in cases involving organized crime, major federal investigations, and high-profile abductions. So the question becomes, who would do this, and why? That's what we're going to try to answer, or at least try to understand, through the 5 things that don't add up. Reason number 1. The pacemaker signal. This is the detail that caught my attention first, and once you hear it, I think it'll catch yours too. Nancy Guthrie has a pacemaker. A pacemaker is a small electronic device implanted near the heart that sends electrical signals to regulate heartbeat. They're common, they're life-saving, and they do something else that's relevant to this case. Modern pacemakers are equipped with wireless monitoring technology. Many models can transmit data, heart rate, rhythm readings, device status, to medical providers remotely. Some do this automatically. Some require a bedside monitoring unit. Here's the question. If Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker was transmitting data, or if investigators were able to pull data from the device, that pacemaker becomes a tracking device. It becomes a medical record of exactly what her body was doing during the abduction. Was she under extreme stress at 1:47 a.m.? What did her heart rate look like during the alleged kidnapping? What did it look like in the hours after? Now, I want to be clear, I don't know if investigators access this data. I don't know if this has been reported on or pursued. But here's what I do know. If that data exists and if it hasn't been made part of the public narrative, that's a gap worth noting. Pacemaker data has been used in criminal cases before. In 2016, A man in Ohio was charged with arson after prosecutors used data from his pacemaker to challenge his account of events. His heart rate didn't match his story. The question is, in the Nancy Guthrie case, is anyone asking what the pacemaker data shows? That's reason number 1, and it sets the stage for everything that follows. Reason number 2, the 41-minute timeline. Let's talk about time, because in this case, the timeline has some gaps that are difficult to explain. Here's what we know, or what has been reported publicly. At 1:47 a.m., the masked figure is at the home. Nancy is taken. At 2:28 a.m., 41 minutes later, there is a known timestamp in this case. Then at 2:36 a.m., just 8 minutes after that, there's another. Now, 41 minutes is a long time. It's long enough to drive a significant distance. It's long enough to make multiple stops. It's long enough to transfer someone from one vehicle to another, change locations, or make contact with other people. But here's what makes that 41-minute window interesting. Tucson, Arizona is approximately 70 miles from the Sonoran border with Mexico. 70 miles. At highway speeds, that's about an hour of driving, less if you're pushing it. Now, I'm not saying Nancy was taken to Mexico. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that the geographic context of Tucson, its proximity to an international border, means that the 41-minute window has to be understood in terms of what's physically possible within that time frame. And here's what else is interesting. The masked figure, by multiple accounts, was described as calm, deliberate, not rushing. If you were abducting someone and you had a plan, a vehicle waiting, a route mapped, a destination in mind, you wouldn't need to rush either. That kind of composure, in the middle of a kidnapping, in the middle of the night, that's not panic, that's preparation. So the question isn't just what happened in those 41 minutes. The question is, who had the knowledge, the resources, and the composure to execute something like this? That's reason number 2. Reason number 3, the ransom notes. Multiple ransom notes. In most kidnapping cases, a ransom demand is straightforward. 1 communication. 1 demand. 1 set of instructions. In the Nancy Guthrie case, multiple ransom notes were reportedly sent. And that detail raises a significant question. Who sends multiple ransom notes? Option 1. Someone who is disorganized. Someone who panicked, sent one note, then second-guessed it and sent another. That's the profile of an amateur. Someone who didn't fully plan this out. Option 2. Someone running a deliberate strategy. Multiple notes could mean multiple people involved. Different authors, different demands, different agendas. Or it could mean someone intentionally creating confusion, making the investigation harder by introducing conflicting information. Option 3. Someone who wants the notes to be found and analyzed. Someone creating a paper trail on purpose. Now the FBI has access to forensic document analysis, handwriting analysis, paper and ink tracing, digital metadata if the notes were sent electronically. These are tools that can tell investigators a lot about who wrote a ransom note, and whether the person who wrote it is the same person who took Nancy. The fact that multiple notes exist means multiple data points for investigators. It also means multiple opportunities for something to go wrong. A fingerprint left behind, a distinctive phrase, a writing style that can be matched to a specific person. Here's what I find most interesting. The public hasn't seen the notes, the content hasn't been released, and that's normal. Investigators typically withhold that kind of information for operational reasons, but it means we're working with a significant unknown. Who sent them? What did they demand? And do the notes tell a story that's consistent with a genuine abduction, or a story that raises more questions than it answers? That's reason number 3. Reason number 4. How the investigation was handled. This one is less about the evidence itself and more about the process. When a kidnapping occurs, especially a high-profile kidnapping, the first hours are critical. The crime scene needs to be secured, evidence needs to be preserved, witnesses need to be interviewed immediately while memories are fresh, and the investigation needs to move quickly because in a kidnapping, time is life. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not accusing law enforcement of doing anything wrong. I don't have full access to the investigative record, and neither do you. What I'm doing is asking questions based on what has and hasn't appeared in public reporting. Here are the questions that matter. Was the scene secured immediately? When a kidnapping is reported, the first responders have to treat the area as a crime scene from the moment they arrive. Every surface is a potential evidence source. Were neighbors canvassed in the first hour? If someone was taken at 1:47 a.m. in a suburban neighborhood, there's a window, maybe 30 minutes, where a neighbor, a driver heading to an early shift, or a security camera on a house across the street could have captured something. Was that canvass done fast enough? What about the vehicle? If Nancy was transported in a vehicle, that vehicle left the area at 1:47 a.m. Traffic cameras, license plate readers, gas station footage, highway cameras, Tucson has them. The window to pull that footage before it gets overwritten is narrow, typically 24 to 72 hours for many systems. And one more question. The FBI was brought in? Good. The FBI has resources and expertise that local law enforcement doesn't. But when the FBI enters a case, there's sometimes tension about jurisdiction and information sharing. Has that coordination been smooth? Has anything fallen through the cracks? These are the questions that define whether this investigation is moving at the speed it needs to. That's reason number 4. Reason number 5. Why her? This is the question that, to me, sits at the center of everything. Nancy Guthrie is the mother of a famous person, but she herself is a private individual. She's elderly. She lives in Tucson, Arizona. Not in New York, not in a gated celebrity compound, not in a high-profile location. So why her? Why this woman? Why this house? Why this night? There are really only a few possible answers, and each one leads somewhere different. Answer 1. Random. This was a crime of opportunity. Wrong place, wrong time. But that doesn't fit the profile of what we know. The deliberate composure of the suspect, the multiple ransom notes, the level of planning this appears to have required. Random crimes of opportunity don't usually look like this. Answer 2. The Savannah connection. The target wasn't Nancy. It was Savannah's money, Savannah's resources, Savannah's network. Taking Nancy was a way to get to Savannah. This theory fits best with the ransom note narrative. But here's the problem. If you're targeting Savannah Guthrie, a nationally recognized television journalist, you have to know that the FBI gets involved immediately. You have to know that the media attention will be overwhelming. You have to know there is no clean way out. That level of risk suggests someone who is either very bold, very desperate, or very confident they won't be caught. Answer 3. Someone who knew Nancy personally. Someone who knew her routine. Someone who knew which house was hers. Someone who knew she'd be home at 1:47 in the morning. And that, to me, is the most uncomfortable answer of all. Because it raises a question nobody wants to ask out loud. Did someone close to Nancy, someone she trusted, have something to do with this? I am not making that accusation. I want to be very clear about that. But in kidnapping cases, when the motive doesn't fit the profile of a stranger abduction, when the level of specific knowledge required is high, investigators are trained to look close first. Why her? That's the question this whole case turns on, and until we have an answer, that question stays open. So here's where I land. 5 things about this case that don't add up. A pacemaker that may hold answers no one is talking about. A 41-minute gap that needs to be accounted for minute by minute. Multiple ransom notes that suggest either chaos or strategy. An investigation that has to move faster than the evidence disappears. And the question of why Nancy, specifically Nancy, was chosen. None of these things prove anything. I want to be honest about that. This case is still open. The FBI is still investigating. Nancy Guthrie's safe return is what everyone, including this channel, wants more than anything. But the job of someone who pays close attention, a digital detective, is to look at the details, to notice what doesn't fit, to ask the questions that get us closer to the truth. So here's what I want from you. In the comments below, tell me your theory. What do you think happened on the night of February 1st? Who do you think is responsible? And what detail from this video stands out to you as the most significant? I read every single comment, and the best theories, the ones that are thoughtful, evidence-based, and raise new questions, I will feature in a follow-up video. This case is evolving, new information is coming out, and when it does, Digital Detective will be here to break it down. If you made it this far, thank you. Genuinely. This took time to put together. And if you found it useful, if it made you think, if it raised a question you hadn't considered before, the best thing you can do right now is hit subscribe. Every subscriber tells YouTube that this content is worth showing to more people. And more people watching means more eyes on cases like this one. Cases where the details matter, where the questions haven't been answered, and where staying informed is the only way to stay ahead. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the follow-up video when new information breaks on this case. Stay alert, stay informed. This is Digital Detective, and I'll see you in the next one.